Hello, my name's Mab Jones. Thank you for inviting me to read. I'm mostly known as a poet. I'm based in Cardiff, I live in Cardiff Bay. And I'm going to be reading from a couple of pamphlets that came out during lockdown. One is this one, it's called The Land That Grew Me, and it's basically poems about Wales. And that was published by Selcouth Station. They had an environmental chapbook competition. And the other one is this one, 101 Haiku for Lockdown, which is published by Infinity Books UK, which is actually me. So it's self-published, but I feel like I've been doing this 14 years. And I started with a little chapbook, self-published chapbook when I was a performance poet all that time ago. I've been published by other people since, but now it just felt like, I can do that. No one's gonna be snooty about it, especially because that one came out too, and that was not published by me. So I'm happy with both of these. I'm going to read from this one first. The poems are numbered 1 to 111, and they were written within a 24-hour period. So I'd kind of written a few of these in my head, and then I started writing them and they just poured out. I went to bed, woke up, I wrote some more, and I realised I could probably write about 100 in 24 hours. So I set myself the challenge and I ended up writing 111. So they're numbered in order, and I'll just read a selection of these and I'll let you know what number they are. 1. I hear the news. Who declared a pandemic? Night, stumbling, falls. 2. Sent home from work, I am gifted a houseplant. Who knows which of us will survive? 3. Making my way home from the closed office. Daffodils are withering fast. 4. Within days I'm without work. Everything cancelled. No cicadas sing. 5. Everything cancelled. I press the pause button, even on you, love. 8. Alone in my room, speechless, soundless, birdsong through glass. 9. One lover, 2 parents, 3 siblings, and always just these 4 walls. 12. I find a spare toilet roll in a drawer. Lottery win. 15. My partner has a garden full of grass. How I would fall on those blades. 16. I yearn to swim. Instead, this immersion into silence. 17. Waves of solitude, an ocean of aloneness. I keep myself afloat. 18. Waiting, wondering, unsure, uncertain, I begin to cough. 20. My phone sits quiet, its silence roaring, an empty seashell. 23. Someone in the street creates a group on WhatsApp. Sudden communion. 24. People are dying. From my window, I try to count the stars. 25. In the supermarket, we queue like cattle, not knowing who will be next. 26. Don't stand too close, don't stand too close. A large man strides past anyway. 29. Don't know your name, never met before. Street karaoke. 34. The flowers open their mouths to speak. Silence. 36. A stranger passes and smiles. an iridescent dragonfly. 38. Every day I take some time to meditate and pray. Even blossoms cling hard to the branch. 42. Already the blossoms are falling. I should call my mother. 45. Gratitude for the many free events currently online. A bowl full of ripe fruit. 48. A cup falls plop into a sink full of water. 50. I separate laundered clothes. Through the wall I hear coughing. 53. We retreat indoors. A snail shell cannot withstand a boot. 56. The milk in the fridge has turned sour. No call from you today. 59. In my cheap rented room I curse all landlords. Every human a lord, surely. 61. People post strange selfies on Facebook. Flowers come in all shapes and colours. 63. In the mirror, my mother's face again. 66. The teachers send too much homework. The children paint rainbows and laugh. 67. The teachers send even more homework. Ping, emails are tossed into space. 68. The teachers send reminders about homework. I'm sorry, my dog ate my laptop. 70. Men still at work. Buildings still rise, as death rates do too. 74. What shall I learn? Yoga, Welsh, art history, digital publishing. The dandelion head is full of seeds. 78. So many joggers, a constellation of sweating bodies. 83. My mother, afraid of doctors, goes to the doctor. The tulips this season are frowning. 86. The woman stares, frightened of the invisible. 87. Pacing up and down, pacing back and forth, flowers are meant for bouquets. 88. I turn off GPS. What use are maps now anyway? 91. Great Mother, bless me as I sit out this curse. 92. Never so clear that rain may fall on rich and poor alike. 93. Trapped in a routine of absence, blossoms fall too soon. 96. A woman sits on a bench nearby, too close, not close enough. 98. I complete my final poem. Sunset comes at last. 99. I can't stop writing haiku. A lightning flash. I write some more. 100. This is a world of Buddhas and demons, annoying dogs and joggers. 101. I hear a mosquito. All night I fret, wondering when it will bite. 103. I lie down to sleep. The flowers outside close in sympathy. 105. The end of the world. My neighbour still screams at her child. 108. When the parks are empty, how wonderful they seem. 110. The future uncertain, the now contained, still the birds fly high and free. 111. I hear the news, the end of lockdown, dawn like a piñata breaks. So that's the end of the book. Obviously, I've only read a selection of those. You can find that book on Amazon or on the website of Infinity Books, which I also run. And now I'm going to read from this book, which was a winner in the Selkirk Station Environmental Chapbook competition. And these are all about Wales. And some of them I've read before, some of them I've never read before. So I'll just read some of these, focusing on the ones I've never read before, because that kind of makes it a bit more interesting for me as well. So this is one I've read a couple of times. It's in one of the arcades in Cardiff city centre. Summer City. It's a poem for Cardiff. In my memory, this city is always summer. The museum dome a scoop of vanilla, the brewery chimney a dancing figure, the hum of Queen Street like child song, the shoppers hopscotching to buy. Though I am old and the veins now jump like skipping ropes in my hand, my hip bones stiff and as delicate as meringue, and though winter comes again to smother us in grey, still the city sits golden in my recollection, the river a holiday bangle, the bay as blue as a tip-top, the eyes of the houses smiling down beneath the thrown ball of the sun. This is another kind of quite new poem, which I don't think I've ever read out. And I wrote it when I was on the train going to Barry Island. And I don't know if you know, but there's a famous poem about taking a trip to Barry Island called, I think it's called something like Maggie Vach, or something of that sort. So Maggie Vach makes an appearance in this poem. I'm riding the back of a banshee to Barry, the screaming, buckling body of the train, pram full and bursting, passing the eyes of houses, the arms of roads, weaving under wiring, the pylons standing guard. It's summer and Maggie Vach will be there, with all her holiday children, under sun hat, over sand clot, fielding armfuls of ice cream into all those unfathered mouths. The sea will marathon closer, bringing broken glass and shells. The seagulls will dare a dive when the littlest plops her cone. The pingu bins are waiting and the donuts are mouthing their O's. I'm on my way on this ghost train, in sunglasses, a spectre, non-toddlered, not belonging. As the sand castles rise, I'll finish this poem, the hissing sea for a friend. So as you can probably guess, the Maggie Vach poem is about families. And I am a woman without children, so that is the contrast inherent in that piece of writing. I'm not particularly, I'm not a Welsh nationalist. I think there's a tendency for us in Wales to maybe confuse nationalism and patriotism. I am patriotic in that I live here, I'm from here, but I don't see things with kind of rosy tinted spectacles, and I'm not normally inclined to write kind of grandiose poems about Wales or about Welsh history, but obviously living in South Wales, you can't escape the kind of inherited history of the coal mines. When I was growing up in Cardiff, we had a coal bunker out in the back garden, and the coal man would come. I'm ancient, I'm 111, like the haiku book. I wrote one a year, actually. That's what happened there. So I've travelled around South Wales and I'm quite interested in history, as most of us are. And so it's difficult not to write about Wales, but I don't like to kind of make it too grand, and I don't really like sentimentality. So with this, maybe it's got some emotion in it, It's about Six Bells, and it's called Six Bells, so that's a place near, I think, Abertillery. And what happened is that there was a huge explosion one day, and a lot of miners died, essentially, like a huge number of them. So I was walking, and it's lovely, and I wrote this poem, Six Bells. It wasn't a blast, our tour guide said, like the ones you see in James Bond. A sudden explosive pow, and then the bodies thrown back from the force. No, it was more like an opening from the film Mission Impossible, where the fire neatly follows the fuse, a strolling slick of flame. The men would have seen it seconds before, a blazing, burning wall, which came as if from nowhere and shut their lungs like mouths. Now there is only silence and the blackbird's blossoming song as we walk along together on top of the closed-up mine. I wish I wouldn't talk about nationalism and patriotism. I don't get any work around here anymore. I've been reading for 16 and a half minutes, this thing tells me, so I'll just do a couple more. Which ones have I not read? There's hardly any in here, to be honest. It's about 10 poems. So this one is about another place of Wales. I had this idea of doing a map of Wales, because I used to travel around a lot doing gigs and things when I was more of a performance poet. And this is another one that's got a place name for a title, and it's called Pendine. And as you may know, in Pendine, that's where they famously broke the world land speed record, which they've been telling me about since I was a child. Every time I've been to Pendine, someone mentions it. Pendine. A man tells another man of a different man who once broke the world land speed record here. But this is also where Molly and Millie took their dog child for a walk, back when their love was new, but an old rule made it outlaw. Tell me, which goes faster, the forward hurl of civilization or Cupid's haphazard arrow? Tell me, which is greater, the passion of man's competition with man, or that of two women's embrace? So I personally felt that the antidote to men racing against each other was to write a lesbian love poem. There we go. So I'll just read one more from this book. And I will read another one about not having any children. It's not the final poem. The final poem is quite a grand sort of poem, but I want to read this one because, as I say, I've not read it before. I wrote this one for a poet's blog. They had like a little call out, and sometimes you just respond to these things, you don't even know why. And then I wrote it and I was like, oh, that topic again, God. Okay, so this is called Cupboard. I, who've inherited nothing, except this nose more arched than a harp, these bones made to cradle a life, find in these old things enough to still my quivering beak, which pricks in every direction of a map, enough to soothe the soup of my belly, which craves to feed the lips of a babe. Be still. These delicate, finely wrought treasures sit in a cupboard that's cradle-sized. My eyes sip at them daily, when making tea, slipping the coats from potatoes. 2 cruets as white as atoms, twin egg cups as blue as forever. The bowls I bought back in Kyoto, black and red, lacquered like beads. A glass patterned with the Queen of Hearts, fashioned by hand in the 50s. An iron teapot for ceremonies by kimono-clad women or samurai. Is there a difference? I twirl my knife and hum, keep my pattern of daily ritual before these sitting things, their bodies as sturdy as Buddhas. Cleared from the homes of the dead, they are small joys which in my small world loom large. The dust which rests on them settles on me. Relics and remnants, shy souvenirs, yet their presence calms as I cut carrots, slice bread, my bird nose still for a minute, my stomach quiet for a time. Who needs children when you can have knickknacks? Thought we'd just leave an uncomfortable pause there. Yeah, so now Kate and Christina have asked me to respond to these 5 questions. The first question is, how would you describe your writing process? So, with poetry, I was thinking about this, and I don't think my process has really changed, or the impetus for writing hasn't really changed in all this time. So either I've got an emotion that I want to express, or I want to show off, like I get a phrase or something. So I found it really interesting over the years how, I do marketing as a job, I do copywriting, that kind of thing, how there is a kind of a crossover, and I've come to think of poetry quite cynically as emotional marketing sometimes. But it's normally, and depending on which one it is, I'll write something based on that impetus. So if it's an emotion, I'll try and express that. And if it's a clever idea, like a one-liner, which very often is, and it will be the beginning of a poem, I'll write that down. And then with these, I try to use the energy of that initial prompt, that initial spark, to carry on writing until there is like a complete thing there, because what I've found is that if I don't do that, I will have an unfinished poem. And I've got a lot of unfinished poems, and I'm keen not to keep doing that, especially at the minute when my time for creative writing away from my other work is quite limited. So I write it in one big bulk, in one go, in a block, whatever. And I won't think too much about line breaks, and I'll be aware that I'm repeating some things and some things are clumsy, so it'll be really rough usually. But you've asked about my editing process in the next question, so going on to that, when I've got that big block, then I'll normally do the usual thing of crossing out and adding in, typical editing. You cut, you add, and you change things. So those 3 things. And when that block gets a bit messy looking, I'll write it out in neat. So this is all by hand. I normally write by hand. And then I'll do the same with that block. I'll cut and I'll add and I'll write other phrases, and it'll get messy, and then I'll write it out again in neat. So it's a kind of a sifting process that normally happens. When I was a performance poet, maybe there would be one of that process, because I don't know, it was easier. It's easier to write things which rhyme or are in a structure or for entertainment, if that's your only purpose. But with page poetry, obviously there's a lot more to it. I like both sorts. I don't like to put them into categories really, but it's useful. So when I'm writing more for the page than the stage, then there will be that sort of sifting and refining process. And obviously, again, you put the poem away as part of that, and you come back to it later on, because you need to have fresh eyes. It's impossible to just keep working at it and working at it. Your eyes don't refresh themselves. Even if you put it away for 5 minutes, you'll notice when you go back a difference, and you'll see things you haven't seen before. So I do put things away, but I always try and get that first draft done, because it's amazing if you go on a creative writing course how many poems you'll actually knock out. So from that, I've learnt you can force it a bit, even if it's crappy. I think it's still good to get it out straight away. I feel like I should have been more succinct with your writing process. Like, do I have a routine or anything? No. I do writing for a job as well. I do copywriting, and sometimes I just don't want to write anything creative, because copywriting is a creative writing. I do a lot of that. I don't have a routine. Just when I'm not doing the other writing and I'm not feeling worn out, I'll do creative writing. Although I do write prose as well, and I've been working on a novel. So with that, I've had to be a bit more disciplined, because poems are short and a novel isn't. So with the novel, I spent some time this summer and in lockdown sorting it out, because it was a big mess. The structure was all wrong. And now it's clear, and I try and do a little bit of that quite often. Not every day, but often, like every other day, maybe. What book or author has helped to inspire or influence your work? Okay, I didn't really think about this one. This is the sort of one that I've never got a good answer to. Again, I want to say something really awesome that really reflects on how brilliant I am. I read very widely. I really admire writers who write poetry and prose, because they are so few. So I feel that they're the rare, special ones. I love Margaret Atwood very much. I rate her poetry and her prose highly, as does the world. So it's not just me on that one. I follow a writer called Matt Haig on social media, and I've read most of his things. He writes prose. With poets, there are so many. When I was a teenager, I loved Anne Sexton and Sharon Olds, and I still love them, really, but I read widely. I can never remember the names of all the authors and titles, because I dip into so many things. Maybe it's a bit disrespectful, I don't know, but influences. I wrote my MA dissertation on the works of Charles Dickens, because I wanted to be a novelist, not a poet. That was an accident. So I think Dickens probably did influence me quite a lot, and I really like how he was quite epic, but he had such a killer sense of humour. If you read his works, there's a lot of humour in them. I quite like that amalgamation of epic and funny. What are you currently reading? I am prepared for this one. I have been reading, actually, I went on holiday the other week. Just, local beach for a time after lockdown, and I've been doing the social media for Wilbur Smith. He's got like 3 million fans on Facebook. It's not Wilbur Smith, it's me, by the way. And I thought I should really read something by him. All of his books, like 500 plus pages, but I read one, The Triumph of the Sun, and that was really interesting, and it was really well researched. He's got, he's really popular, and all his books go to number one, but I was unprepared for how immersive it was and how detailed it was, and it was really, sort of put me off writing a bit, because the novel I've been writing is like, there was a lot of research involved, and I'm like, oh, if I'd done as good a job, I'm comparing myself. So I read that, it was really inspiring. And the book I've been writing, the novel, it's got Captain Scott in it. So I've also been reading the biography of Captain Scott by Ranulph Fiennes. So Ranulph Fiennes, and I've been reading this book, The Penguin Diaries by Christopher James, which is a series of poems in the voices of the crew members of the Terra Nova. So that's the ship that Captain Scott sailed to the Antarctic in, and that's really interesting. Oh, and I'm reading Beryl Bainbridge, The Birthday Boys, which is also about Captain Scott. You can see a theme here, can't you? Because I read Wilbur Smith and I was like, I need to do even more research. I can't stop with the research. I need to stop with the research and finish the book. basically, but it's really hard to do that. What advice do you have for current creative writing students? Well, I'm sure I'm sure people say the same thing at this point, don't they? But I mean, don't give up, because it's easy to give up. With poetry, they say aim for 100 rejections a year, don't they? I sometimes get tired of rejections. I don't think I've sent anything out in about a year and a half. But don't do that. My advice to you is do that, because I know poets who do that consistently, and then they progress. It's weird, that, isn't it? It's like how much effort you put in is what you get back. It's so strange. So never give up, but also at the same time, don't be worried about those periods in which you're not writing much or not writing anything. So many poets, and myself included, uh, we've felt down about ourselves when we're not producing work, and others are producing and we're not producing. And I've been really harsh to myself at those times. But now, after all this, all these years, I've come to realize that those not producing periods are actually the most important periods. They're the periods where, for me, I've kind of mulched stuff inside without even meaning to, without even trying, like totally just forgetting about writing. And when I go back to it, then when I feel the itch to do it, things have changed. Things have progressed. I feel a bit more capable. So I think it's like muscles. You exercise a muscle, and then for the muscle to actually improve, you have to not use the muscle for a time. Like, you have to, or you can damage it. It's going to get worn out. It's not going to grow as you would like. So don't be scared of those fallow periods. They're actually really important. And I think those are the main things, really. Do what you want to do. It's a song by the Beatles. Yeah, follow your inclinations. Essentially, don't worry what other people are doing. I mean, hopefully you'll get an agent and want to sell your book. Not if you're a poet, very hard to do, but you can sell a novel for sure. But it's not for you to worry about the marketing. It's for you to do the creative work. And with the creative work, you can't really think about the marketing. This is where I always get kind of mixed up, because I'm good at marketing, but I don't want to write marketing. But it's easy to write marketing, emotional marketing. Interested in this. So do what you feel, follow your inclinations, don't worry about what others are doing or what you're not doing. Just, remember that writing is practice, and it's not always fun. It's a kind of, fun in the way that exercise is fun. But it's worth it, I think. Okay, so I think that's enough of me talking. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for having me. If you have any questions, my name is Mab. As I said, you can find my contact details on my website, and there's a newsletter that I sometimes try and do. But if you email me, I will reply. Thank you so much.